What is good, everybody? Welcome to Stats and Cohn and the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I am Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Grant Cohn. Grant, happy Thanksgiving. What's going on?
Happy Thanksgiving, man. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. 49ers seem to be back to their old selves again.
And so your mental health has improved. I love to hear
Yes,
that.
1,000%.
Wonderful.
Yes, that's
Just in
sad,
time
but
for the holidays, like the Niners do every time. They just kind of like mess with you around what? Veterans Day?
well,
Memorial
this
Day?
is the weird thing this year. It's like all my holidays are affected by the 49ers. They're playing on Thanksgiving, they're playing on Christmas, they played on my wife and my son's birthday. So yeah, I'm in it now.
If they lose on Thanksgiving, will it ruin your holiday? Will you still be able to say things that you're thankful for?
No, it will be ruined, and Christmas too. And like I think they're winning on Thursday, but I'm worried about that Christmas game. So yeah, it's going to be, I won't have a happy Thanksgiving until about 11:30 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday.
See, I feel like you're missing the spirit of Thanksgiving right there. If you need the 49ers to win, you're not truly thankful. You should be thankful for the fact that they're all having fun.
You're like that guy that had the shirt last week and said, "I just want both teams to have fun."
Absolutely. I was on a stream last night with some Seahawks bloggers, and one guy, Evan Hill, was making a hot take that he hates Thanksgiving and that turkey's trash and that there should be like ribeye steaks. It's like, imagine being one of the original colonialists and the Native Americans come over offering turkeys, and he's like, "Man, where's the ribeye? No thanks." Like, you missed the point of the entire holiday.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
look, I'll never turn down ribeye, but I like Thanksgiving food, so I'm here for it. But anyway,
I like Thanksgiving food because it's like a celebration of sides. I mean, turkey's great, but it's like, how many sides can you fit on your plate? Can you make it all work together? Because you got to put gravy on everything. I think it's a wonderful endeavor.
Yeah, I think it's legit that turkey is not the best Thanksgiving food by far.
Oh no, it's like part of the it's part of the plate, but it's not necessarily the star by any means.
All right, let's get into the state of the
It's like the
49ers
drummer
right now.
in the band.
Are you saying
Sorry.
it's the Ringo Starr of?
It's the Ringo Starr of your plate, but it's definitely not the John Lennon.
But you know what? Like, you know what they call Ringo Starr? A Beatle. So, okay. And also, he's one of the only two that are still alive. So
there you go. That's right.
All right. This weekend, Niners, Seahawks. The Niners absolutely stomped Seattle last year in 3 meetings. Do you have any belief or reason to believe that Thursday will be any different?
Okay. I think Seattle's defense is better than it was. They still struggle against the run, but I think they kind of put out the blueprint on how to stop Brock Purdy first. Single high coverage, man-to-man, robber, take away the middle of the field, try to force him to go outside. They didn't really have the talent to pull that off last year. I mean, the Browns sort of had the talent to pull that off. I think the Seahawks may have it now with Devin Witherspoon. I think they have a really good secondary. They probably have not one but 2 cornerbacks in Reek Woolen who can match up man-to-man with Brandon Ayuk and not completely, Jamel Dean'd out there. Which, you know what I'm talking about when I say Jamel. So that's something in their favor. Their defense actually can match up a little bit with the Niners passing game, which is something. But I'd have absolutely no respect for their offense. None. One thing I will say, Niners have been giving up some screen passes recently. Everyone knows it. They know it. And the Seahawks have that element in their offense now with Zach Charbonnet, who went to UCLA and is good because I've been watching him. He's not good because I've been watching him, but I know he's good because I've been watching him. So I think the Niners should smack them. I don't think that the Seahawks can do a whole lot on offense, and I think Geno Smith is, Geno Smith.
Right, which is good, not great. I think that's fair to say about Geno. If you're watching on this, I can't even describe that face for people that aren't watching on the street. It's just kind of like,
it's kind of like the Kevin James meme, where he's kind of like shrugging. It's like,
I have to say this because I always like to say when guys are good, I say they're good, and when they're bad, I say they're bad. Brock Purdy is playing himself back into the MVP conversation right now. He has been absolutely money the last 2 weeks. He was phenomenal on Sunday against the Buccaneers. And I think he's going to cook Seattle on Thursday. I really do.
It'll be interesting. I do think it'll be a bigger challenge than the last couple of times he faced him. They have Frank Clark now, Leonard Williams now, Devin Witherspoon now, Julian Love. I think they're just a little bit more equipped to defend the pass. Maybe Christian McCaffrey goes off again. It's highly possible. Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's hot. Like, why would you bet against Brock Purdy right now? He's really locked in. He's rested. I could see it. I just feel like if the Niners lose this game, the only way they lose this game is if really he starts turning the ball over like he did a few weeks ago.
Right.
And again, I keep going back to the split of trailing, losing. It's not just a fourth quarter thing, just trailing or winning. When he's winning this year, he has thrown no picks. You can count on him to not give the game away when the team has gotten the lead. But when he's down, he's thrown 4 picks. And he hasn't been down that much. So that's just like my only thing with him. If the Seahawks somehow find a way to get an early lead off a turnover or special teams or some fluke, is bad Brock going to show up? Remember we used to talk about bad Jimmy?
Yeah. So you had the tweet that basically set people off, which was Brock Purdy played an excellent game. He was nearly perfect. Still, it would be nice to see him come from behind and win eventually. He almost never trails. Now, I think that's something that a lot of people have said about Brock Purdy. I'll say this. While it's true, he hasn't been trailing and he hasn't come from behind a lot this year, I think you have to also give him credit for never trailing, especially because a lot of the time, he's the reason that they're up by multiple scores.
Definitely. I didn't mean to have this tweet come out as like, good job, but you didn't make it interesting enough, so not impressed. Like, no, man, like he did his job to perfection in this game. And we've seen him do that many times. And there's something to be said for doing your job to perfection. But we all know that playing quarterback when you're trailing is way harder and way different than playing quarterback when you're winning. And it's not just that Brock kind of struggles when he's trailing. I think the whole offense isn't built to play from behind. From the offensive line to Brock to Kyle, it's all about running the ball and then play action. And that stuff kind of goes out the window when you're down 7, 10, 13. So it's not necessarily his fault, really. Like, he might be great coming from behind, but it's hard to show that when your right tackle's Colton Kivitz and your right guard's, Spencer Burford. You're just not really set up to. Also, like, that's the weakest part of Kyle Shanahan's playbook, drop back passing. It's all about running and play action. That stuff is really married together quite well. All those plays look alike.
By the way, a little bit of semi-breaking news here. Brock Purdy is your NFC Offensive Player of the Week with his perfect passer rating, which I continue to say it's like that's the lazy thing to go to when you talk about how good of a day Brock Purdy had. Like, no one even knows how passer rating is calculated, yet we're all sitting there going, he had a perfect passer rating. Like, no, he was great on Sunday, but not for that reason. If he didn't have a perfect passer rating, he still would have been just as great. The big thing, excuse me, that stuck out to me, Grant, was the smaller plays that he made. 3rd and 2, Brock scrambles for 3 yards, gets down. 2nd and 12, I think they had late in the game when they're trying to ice it, and he rolls out on a bootleg, and instead of waiting and trying to force a play back across his body over the middle, he just runs with the ball, gets the first down, stays in bounds, and avoids a hit. I thought that was a huge play. Like, I think he's starting to see the bigger picture about, game situation and all of that. And to me, that means he's leveling up in terms of where he is as a quarterback.
He's darn good. Darn good. And I think there's like 3 things that make him really good: his mind, his arm, his feet, right? That's all quarterbacks. But you talk about like his arm not being that strong, and it's not, but I mean, he throws with anticipation. He's leading the league in completion percentage. Like, he's not throwing a ton of tight window throws, but he is very accurate, which is great. He throws anticipation. Great. He's very smart, but I think it's his feet that I'm like most impressed with. He is really good at escaping pressure. I mean, it's such a great quality, especially on this team, because they don't really protect him. They give him Trent Williams, and that's
no, they don't.
So it's on him to protect himself. He does a great job of not just getting out of the pocket, but sliding in the pocket, getting rid of the ball quickly, buying time when he needs to. He's really good at all of that stuff. And on top of that, he can actually scramble for first downs. I mean, that part of his game to me is the most Patrick Mahomes-like, the way he moves. And I don't think people give him enough credit for the way he moves. I do think his arm, I don't know, like that's the whole debate. Like, is his arm, what is his arm? Like, you all see his arm. And when he's losing and he has to just drop back in the pocket and throw all over the field, he doesn't really have the arm strength to like pierce the defense into tight windows throws. But other than that, I mean, he can create windows, he can create plays. He's really freaking good. He's really freaking good. He kind of reminds me of like Derek Jeter. You know what I mean? Like Derek Jeter had so many hits, but like his hits were all like bloops to right field. You know what I mean? Like you'd watch Derek Jeter, he'd get a hit, and you're like, man, he like kind of got jammed on that one. It wasn't really that impressive, but he did it every day, like multiple times a day. And after a while, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna stop. He's great. He's really good. End of story. He's not that exciting. He's not like Alex Rodriguez in that power, but like, wow, he's super duper consistent. I think Brock Purdy's kind of like the Derek Jeter of quarterbacks.
I don't think you're giving him enough credit. I have to say, I've been really impressed the last couple of weeks. Some of those
I think
throws,
Derek Jeter is going to be a Hall of Famer, or is.
Well, he is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, just like.
I think that Brock has made more tight window throws than people remember. Like we remember that pass, the 40-yarder to Debo, right? Where there's nobody around Debo Samuel.
I'm not saying he can't do it or hasn't done it. I'm with you. I agree. Yeah. He can do it. He can do it.
And I think that this thing too, because a lot of times with Brock, we say, oh, well, it's Shanahan. Look at, it's got Ayuk and Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey. Yes, that's true. But he's elevating in a major way the offensive line because his pass protection has not been good this year. And he is making it look much better than it is. Like we don't even talk about it right now. If the 49ers had a different quarterback back there, they would be sacked way more. They wouldn't be scoring points.
Yeah.
He is absolutely elevating this offensive line. I don't know how well you can see
there
this.
You go. I did see that. I feel like this is where Purdy should get most of his praise. Like this is something that is totally independent of Kyle Shanahan and his supporting cast.
So I don't know. It's a little tough to see if you're watching the stream. And if you're not watching the stream, I'll just read it for you. It's a graph. And on the bottom of the graph is the PFF pass blocking grade. And on the left side of the graph is the EPA per play, passes, rushes, and penalties. And Brock Purdy is super high. He's above even the top line on the graph for EPA per play, but he's in the bottom third for pass blocking grade. So what that tells you is he's making chicken salad out of chicken shit, for lack of a better term, when it comes to pass blocking.
Absolutely. I mean, the reason that Colton McKivitz hasn't been a complete liability, same with Spencer Burford, same with Jake Brendel, is Purdy. And again, when we talk about like how much is Purdy helped by the weapons, the supporting cast, the system, a lot. But this is one thing that he's doing on his own. And I think it's one thing that wasn't scouted when he came out of the league. I think the Niners were surprised that he could move like this. I think they thought they were getting Nick Mullins. No, you were getting like a scrambler extraordinaire, a guy who thinks he's Patrick Mahomes, plays like he thinks he's Patrick Mahomes. Got to and really from the escapability. Is Patrick Mahomes that much faster than Brock Purdy?
Actually,
he kind of just
I don't know.
Not really, right? He's fast enough. And he's just very decisive. He knows he doesn't just stand in one spot like Jimmy. We're so used to Jimmy. I really think that's the biggest difference between Brock Purdy and Jimmy. Obviously, well, Purdy's a lot smarter too. A lot smarter. But in terms of like the arm, I think the arm is somewhat similar. You could even argue that Jimmy has a little more zip while Brock may have a little bit better trajectory on the deep throw. But like it's the movement. And I think God, if Bill Walsh were alive, I think that would be one of the things he really admires about Brock. And it was one thing that Jeff Garcia did really well too. If people remember Jeff, that guy could really scramble. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important for quarterbacks to be able to do that.
It has added just the missing dimension to this offense because it's just the thing that is there when stuff breaks down, when somebody doesn't run the wrong route or the defense happens to be in the best play call or somebody misses a block, whatever it may be, it's not the end of the play. In some cases, it's the beginning of the play, and it has absolutely helped the 49ers this year, and it's been great to see. Matthew Sanders, watching on YouTube, says, after watching the tape, Brock has the ability to get 6 or 7 on third down with a well-timed inside draw. Hopefully, Kyle draws something up for the playoffs.
I don't know about that, man. I mean, he's good scrambler, but he's a little fella. I don't mean to say it like that. He's bigger than me. But as a football player, calling quarterback draws for him, I don't want to get hurt. I mean, wow, I don't know. They kind of tried that with Trey Lance. It wasn't really a quarterback draw, but I'm just saying.
Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I wouldn't call it draw, but if it's like he did on that third down play, if it's there when you need it, take it. and he did that, and I loved that. Was one of my favorite plays. Val Brooks says he reminds me of Jeff Garcia. He definitely has an element of that to his game.
Thrives in
John,
chaos, a little bit smaller.
yes.
Jeff Garcia was like 30 and kind of built and maybe a little bit faster, stronger, but in terms of play style, I definitely agree. For sure.
John says, everyone says Purdy can't lead a comeback, but forget he did take the team down the field against the Browns. The kicker just missed the kick.
No one said he can't lead a comeback. It's not that black and white. It just seems like if there's a weakness to his game or something he hasn't proven yet, before we just say he's the next Joe Montana, these are some things that he can prove. Some things he can prove.
Yes. Yeah. And this happens with every quarterback. It's all about like, okay, you did this, but can you do this? Like we tend to move the goalposts on guys and you have to check boxes. Does he have enough arm strength? Yes, I think we've seen with Brock, there's enough arm strength. Is he accurate? Can he protect the lead? Can he do this? Can he do that? And Brock has checked all the boxes so far. And the thing that we're at now is, can he
the highest degree of difficulty stuff?
Right.
The highest degree of difficulty stuff, which is again a compliment to Brock for sure. Look where you're at, man. You're like 23. You've had like a full season's worth of games, and now we're saying like, okay, but can you lead the team down 10 in the Super Bowl against? Can you do that? Because if you can't, you're freaking trash. Like that's sort of where we're at.
It's a really good point. Like we are at this point in the quarterback checklist after 18 starts. You're like, that's pretty amazing. That's a credit to what Brock has done so far. And instead of taking it as like an attack on him, we should it's a good thing that this is where we are.
Are you truly elite? Because I can't say that you're an elite quarterback if you can't make plays and be the best guy on your offense, be an MVP caliber player down 13 because your defense didn't show up that day. I just want to see that. He's had very few instances to prove it. Doesn't have much experience in those situations. Hasn't necessarily come through or looked great. But maybe he will this week. I'd love to see it.
Or he could also win a Super Bowl without ever having to do that, by the way. That's a
I
thing
doubt it,
too.
Though. That's where I'm coming from. I don't think you can do that in 2023. I don't think they're the 1972 Dolphins or whatever. And I'm sure the Dolphins had to come from behind too to go undefeated.
Right. It's unlikely, but it's possible. And we'll find out. I will say this, watching the Eagles play the Chiefs, I never thought the Eagles were going to lose that game. Jalen Hurts does not care if he is down, whatever the case may be, man. The Eagles just never back down. They never just go away from what they do. And damn it, Chiefs, you can't get a win and help out the 49ers. Like I'm worried about the Eagles, man. I'm not going to lie.
To me, that win that the Eagles had this past week was more impressive than any win the Niners have had this year. And not just because they beat the Chiefs. In Kansas City?
Yep.
Okay, they were down 17-7. They were down 10 to the Chiefs and just ran them down. Like, I'd love to see the Niners do that against a great team. And I'm not sure that they're built to do that. Eagles can do it because they have a great offensive line. And I think when you fall behind, you really need the offensive line that can really pass protect. And that's not Brock Purdy's fault. That's just not how the Niners are built. They're built to run. They have all these like mid-round picks in their offensive line. So if you want to be a good pass protecting offensive line, you need athletes. They don't really look for athletes on their offensive line. They look for tough guys who fit their run blocking scheme. That's not Brock's fault.
Except for Trent Williams, who's a freak among all athletes.
Great
but
player.
Yeah, the four out of the 5 offensive line positions are not great.
And that's how the Shanahans have always done it. Their attitude is, while the rest of the league tries to get premium offensive linemen, we're going to make do with these 5th, 6th, 7th round picks and laugh at everyone because we're going to spend our resources elsewhere.
The weird thing is, though, like they did spend. So left tackle has always been a priority. They had Joe Staley, and as soon as he retired, they immediately went out and got Trent Williams. But they also invested in center. They signed Weston Richburg to a huge contract at the time. And they went out and they got Alex Mack. So there are times where they do prioritize certain spots on the offensive line, but not.
If I remember correctly, they would spend on two. It would spend big on 2 offensive linemen when one of them was Staley, who is not nearly as expensive as Trent Williams. Once they decided to splurge for Trent Williams, they were like, "Look, we get rookie contract, vet minimum, rookie contract." Sorry, dude. It's so funny how they look at it. The offensive line is like a necessary evil, and the defensive line is like the end all be all. And to me, I look at it the other way. I mean, defensive line is important, but you got to go 8 deep on that. And you can find defensive linemen all over the place. I mean, they're available everywhere at the trade deadline all the time. Offensive linemen are harder to find. They play 100% of the snaps. I'd be more concerned about getting that right and figuring out D-line along the way, because I feel like you can get Chase Youngs, Randy Gregory's all the time. But I don't know.
The good news is that Brock is helping to make up for some of those deficiencies on the offensive line. And that's kind of what we thought with Trey Lance, too, right? You wanted a mobile guy back there. Mm-hmm. I have said it. Kristen Bradley says, is Brock a top 10 quarterback? We are getting the quarterbacking from Brock Purdy and the offense that we had hoped to see with Trey Lance. We are getting mobility back there, somebody that can make a playoff schedule, and we are getting deep chunk plays down the field. To me, this offense is everything you have ever wanted to see from a 49ers offense right now.
This question from Christian: are there 22 teams, 23, 24 teams that would bench their starter for Brock Purdy right now? That's my question. I know he's great on the 49ers. Would the Texans bench CJ Stroud for Brock Purdy? No. But would the Dolphins bench Tua for Brock Purdy? I mean, I take the logistics out of it. Take the logistics out of it, like teaching the offense. But it's like, I'm just trying to think of a guy in like another setting, because I know on the Niners he's great, but I feel like a lot of quarterbacks in the Niners would be great. Like Baker Mayfield would be really good on the Niners. Dak Prescott would be phenomenal on the Niners.
But does it matter if, like, what Brock would be on another team? He's on the 49ers.
I'm just trying to answer this question. I'm just trying to answer that in terms of Christian's question. It's tough for me to rank quarterbacks. And I think when I try to do it, that mental exercise, I try to picture them on different teams.
Chris Tallarico says the Niners have some mobile quarterbacks and good wide receivers coming up. Defense has a real tough time with both of those, and Brock Purdy will have to lead a comeback at some point. They've actually been really good against mobile quarterbacks this year. That's kind of a thing that I thought that they did a really good job on. They faced Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones didn't do anything as a running quarterback in the game.
Well, he hasn't done anything all year. Daniel Jones.
But even just straight up running, he hasn't done anything. I mean, Josh Dobbs
was decent.
12 carries for 48 yards against Josh Dobbs, 4 yards a carry. His long was 12 in the game.
PJ Walker.
He is really good. What did PJ Walker do?
I don't remember. He's done. They missed.
Let me go back and check.
I mean, Joe Burrow got kind of loose on him, to be honest.
Yeah, he did. PJ Walker had 3 carries for 1 yard, so he didn't
got him.
Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow hurt them a little bit, but like scrambles happen. But I feel like we're sort of like, we have this fear of like mobile quarterbacks, but they haven't been nearly as bad against mobile quarterbacks as they have been in the past.
Well, they're going to get Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson coming up. That'll be a test.
The Hurts, but even Geno can move a little bit, so we'll have to see. Chris Maldonado says, just wanted to share with my Gold Standard family. Thank you very much, Chris, YouTube channel member. If you want to become a YouTube channel member, it's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, you get membership badges, you get priority comment response. So please consider it. It's a great way to support the channel. Chris Tallarico is back. He says, not only are the 49ers not built to come from behind, neither is Kyle Shanahan. He can barely call a game when they're ahead. Oh, come on,
Chris. I love the enthusiasm, man. I appreciate you.
I mean, they're scoring like crazy. What do you mean he can barely call a game when they're ahead? Their offense has been great this year.
Last 2 weeks.
And the 5 games before the 3-game losing streak, they were scoring 30 points a game.
Yeah. They lost Trent Williams and everything went haywire. They need Trent Williams. My goodness. They're one offensive lineman who matters.
That is the scariest part. It does seem like Trent and Debo. If one of those guys or both of those guys are out.
No. Forget Debo. I'm sorry. Let's talk. Let's stay right there. It's Trent. It's so Trent. I feel like Debo, maybe defenses respect Debo or get nervous about Debo, but to me, he's 4th in the pecking order on this offense. He runs around. He's a decoy. He's like eye candy. But when it comes to actually getting the ball and producing, it's Ayuk, McCaffrey, Kittle. Those 3 carry the offense.
Yes.
They give Debo some touches early on, like courtesy touches in the script, just to keep him engaged. And then it's like, depending on what he does with them, he might fall out of the game plan entirely. To me, it's all Trent, because when Trent's out there, then they can run to the left. They can do all kind of things in the run game, and they don't have to worry about their terrible right side of the offensive line. When he's not out there, McCaffrey can't get anything done, and it's not his fault.
I agree that, like, when we say Debo, it's not necessarily about like the actual production. It's about literally his presence and how it affects the rest of the defense. I completely agree with that.
It's like it's his reputation from 2 years ago. He's not that guy anymore. He's a good player, but he's not that guy anymore.
Errol Tolbert, thank you very much for the super chat. Ayuk, Debo, CMC, and Kittle make Brock look better than he is. Brock is a dink and dunker. Kyle has mastered getting people wide open. People want Brock to be great so bad that they're giving all this credit to Purdy. I totally disagree with that. He's not a dink and dunker. He is not. He is throwing the ball. He averages more yards per completion than any other quarterback in the league. And if you go and look, the 49ers are not dominating in yards after catch this year like they have previous years. They're not, because he's throwing the ball deeper down the field. Guys are catching it deeper down the field, and they're getting tackled, but they're still getting chunk plays because the air yards are so high.
He's very good at the intermediate passing. Very good at that. He doesn't really throw deep that much. He threw deep to Brandon Ayuk. It was a really nice throw. Jamel Dean, I'll know what happened to Jamel Dean in that game, man.
He got hurt. He hurt his foot.
Every time the ball came his way, he was hurt. But yeah, no, Brock Purdy, he is good. Those people do make him look better. But I always hear people say, like, well, Steve Young played his whole career with Jerry Rice and John Taylor and Brent Jones and Ricky Waters. Like, that's true. That's absolutely true. So you can't really knock him for that. Joe Montana had a lot of great players too. But still, like, Steve Young and Joe Montana played a very long time. They were down big. They played when they were hurt, when other people were hurt, when the team was, like, they've proven themselves. Brock just hasn't had that many games, but it's coming. That's all I'm saying. It's not going to be this easy the rest of his career. It's really easy right now. But we saw a little preview a few weeks ago. There's going to be more adversity down the way, and we got to see what it looks like when Trent Williams misses another game. He's 35 years old. That's coming. Maybe not this year, but it's coming.
I'm not denying that Brock Purdy benefits from the people around him. He does. Every quarterback would. But also, he is making those guys better than they have been. And the perfect example of this, Marcus Thompson had a great tweet. Before Brock Purdy, George Kittle had 24 touchdowns in 76 games. Since Brock Purdy, George Kittle has 12 touchdowns in 16 games. So
that's a Jimmy Garoppolo tweet.
Okay. But you can't deny that George Kittle has been a more productive player with Brock Purdy than he has been with Jimmy Garoppolo. So right. Brock is...
You can't deny that Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. You can't deny that.
Brock is clearly elevating George Kittle in a way that he was not in the past. So I think it's both.
Yeah, and Jimmy Garoppolo was clearly suppressing that dude. Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle should write him a strongly worded letter. Said, I always thought you were my friend, and you never threw me the ball in the end zone. Why? Anyway, I still feel like before we say that Brock Purdy's great or a top 10 quarterback, what would Dak Prescott look like on the 49ers? Would they be better or worse with Dak Prescott? I'm not sure. He's doing really good on the Cowboys right now, and their offensive coordinator is like stuck in 2008.
So, I can't help but notice when you look at Brock and where he ranks, he's first in completion percentage. He's first in QBR. He's first in yards per completion by more than a yard over Tua. So, like, when you can say, would the 49ers be better with somebody else? Like, they're number one in all these categories with the guy that they have.
Yeah, but it's like, if you put him on Seattle, would he be number one in all those things? I don't know. I still feel like a lot of what, like, the Niners set up quarterbacks for success. And the one thing that I say you can't really say, the one thing you got to give Purdy 100% full credit for is the way he evades pressure. That's all him. The rest, he needs to sort of like if he wins the MVP and he has to, like, give a speech. I don't know if you give a speech or he's in that. He needs to have a really, really long speech where he thanks a lot of people. And they need to essentially start playing the music and push him off the stage. Like, he needs to keep going if he wins an MVP. He can't thank enough people if that happens. 80 people need to get thanked.
And that's fine. Look, Tua has the best wide receiver in the league right now in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert. Nobody ever downplays his success because the guys he has. Jalen Hurts has Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. Nobody ever downplays his success.
I downplay everyone's success. I don't want anyone in the world to have success. I hate it.
So,
but it's like, okay, so like Patrick Mahomes doesn't have those guys this year.
Right.
And his numbers are a little bit down. Maybe he's not the MVP, but I'm taking him. I'll take him.
Right. But like, if all we're comparing Brock Holmes to is Patrick Mahomes, that must mean Brock is pretty damn good. Right. Like, we're comparing him to the
Kyle say, when I asked Kyle why he's not playing Jordan Mason, he's playing Elijah Mitchell. He was like, well, I don't look at stats. Okay. Then you can't judge Brock Purdy just based on stats because we don't look at stats over here, right? because Tua has great stats. Dak has great stats. Like, doesn't, and Mahomes doesn't. You got to really watch the tape. And when I watch the tape, I give Brock Purdy a 67.84237 repeating. Of course. Great.
Of course.
Of course.
Matthew Sanders, excuse me, says, keep an eye on Jalen Hurts' knee. He's too tough for his own good. Only so many tush push you can really get. Not wishing injury, but Philadelphia may ruin themselves. He may be banged up a little bit. I'll say this. I was thinking about the tush push after that game. And I think the best thing you can do, you can't stop it. I feel like at this point, they've proven it's pretty much unstoppable. I almost wonder if your best bet is to not necessarily try to stop it, but as soon as Jalen Hurts crosses that line of scrimmage, to just drill him as hard as possible, because you can't stop the play. It's impossible. Like, the nature of the play, he's going to get the first down. But to me, you just have to try and legally hit him as hard as possible. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, yeah, that's football. Or don't give up 4th and 1, 4th and 2. I don't know. It seems to me that most teams can pick up 4th and 1. Whether it's the tush push or a quarterback sneak, like Jimmy Garoppolo never got stopped on a quarterback sneak, and no one was pushing his tush. Why do we have to say that? Anyway, it just seems like, yeah, if you're at 4th and 1, quarterback sneak's going to work one way or another. You don't give that up and go for it if you're in that situation. I like that teams are all of a sudden so aggressive on 4th down. I think it's way better with I like watching games with fewer punts. Special teams in general are pretty much not fun anymore. It's like fair catches and touchbacks. That's special teams. Not that fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it leads to, even if a team doesn't get it, then it sort of helps create an opportunity for the other team. And that's exciting to watch too. So I'm on board. Chris says, I had a super chat before that. Chris, I went back and looked. I don't see it. I see only the one from you about sharing with the Gold Standard family. So I apologize if...
No, it's 9:15. I got it. It says, what up, Grant and Rob? Just found out yesterday me and my wife are expecting a baby boy, April 27th. Callius Joseph Maldonado, another Niner fan like Pops. Congratulations, Chris. And congratulations, Calais. I hope I got that right. It's Calaius.
First of all, Chris, that is awesome. Congratulations. That is not in my thing. That is really weird.
I got it. It's all right.
Well, thank you for that. Chris, that is fantastic. That right around the holidays too. That's a blessing. So congratulations to you. That is fantastic.
Did you get Dale? Dale says, can we talk about special teams? Did you get that one? That was at 9:15.
Hold on.
You missed him, huh?
It's weird. Like, I have some in the thing, but they're not appearing for me because I've hit everyone.
That's fine.
So far,
Well, there was one that said, can we talk about special teams from Dale? $2. It was to me. And sure. I mean, Wisnowski's doing good. Moody's doing good. Ray never gets an opportunity. They gave up that long 51-yard return. That was unreal that happened. No one wants to talk about the fourth quarter because the Niners won by 13 and Jair Brown made some phenomenal plays that bailed him out. But, like, the Niners just quit in that game. They're like, oh, we're up 27-7. Done. It's like, wait a second. The Bucs were at the 12-yard line with like 7 minutes left, and then they were back at the 9-yard line with like 4 minutes left. It's like, well, game's still going on. What happened? Fortunately, Jair Brown was a monster in the fourth quarter. It was like making play after play in the end zone. Otherwise, that game could have been – that was a game. It shouldn't have been a game that late. Anyway, what was I talking about?
They go up 27-7, and they were one possession away from being able to rest everybody and all that. But they didn't stop the Bucs. Instead, they gave up a 5-play touchdown drive, and then the Bucs were kind of still in it. And so all those plans went out the window.
Then they went 3 and out.
Yes.
And then they gave up like a 17-play drive, and then Jair Brown finally ended it. Then they gave up a 51-yard return. No, they went 3 and out again.
Yes.
Then they want to give up a 51. It's like, what? How did you do? What? You just stopped?
Kyle took his foot off the gas.
Quarter. Yeah, you destroyed him in the third quarter. Why would you stop? I don't understand.
Chris Tallarico says the 10-point lead is the scariest for the 49ers. That's when Shanny starts to choke. I think he took his foot off the gas, and they couldn't get anything. They couldn't get anything going. And then the Bucs, went down the field. And the frustrating thing was that 17 or 18 play drive, and then they don't get any points. And then after the punt return, they were basically on the exact same yard line they were when their 17 play drive ended.
Yes. And to me, like, all of that was very troubling from a team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl favorite. Like, hold on, you can't put away the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, you let this happen. I mean, That's why it's troubling to me. But Niner fans like, shut up. We won by 13. Cool. Well, I guess we'll see in 2 months if this was foreshadowing or not. If it was just,
That's the weird thing. It was like, you never put the team away, but also the game
13.
never got within 2 scores.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's weird that you could kind of go on both sides of the issue. Paris says it's not Debo, it's Trent. Our offensive line has made Brock look bad in a way. Brock has to use his legs to win/survive. Brock, I feel like, is underrated at kind of shifting in the pocket, sliding to his left or sliding to his right, just to give himself that extra half a second to make a throw.
Yeah, and I think his numbers, I don't have them in front of me, but his splits when he has pressure as opposed to no pressure are stark. I think his quarterback rating when he has no pressure career is like, I'm pretty sure it's above 130.
Whew.
So you think if they like actually invested in this part of the team, he wouldn't have to use this element of his game and he'd be even better. But they don't, and they never will. So he has to have this quality, and he does.
And thank God for that. Randall says, how was Steve Young on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? For those too
I was
young
not
to remember.
alive.
Yeah, he was not very good with the Buccaneers. That's fair. Chris Tallarico says the question isn't is Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback? It's, is he worth top 10 quarterback money? If he gets paid, he's going to lose pieces. When he's lost those pieces, he went on a losing streak and threw a ton of picks. And that's a fair question to bring up, but I don't have to worry about that this year. And I don't have to worry about it next year either.
That's a good thing. Yeah, you get more data on that one. And you can always, like, just because he's eligible for a contract extension after 3 years, you don't have to give it to him.
That's true too. You
don't
don't
have to.
And you could franchise him twice before it really becomes a thing. Like, I'm not going to worry about what happens 2 years from now right now. This is the win now Super Bowl or bust season, right? So let me just live in this year and we can get to that.
I still want to see that he can stay healthy. Sorry to, knock on wood, but it's like he's gotten hurt a few times. He's a little bit smaller. He does run around. That offensive line is what it is. I want to see. So, and again, they're not going to have to make any decision on extending him, making that kind of investment for a couple years. So that's something, that's another big thing he'll have to prove, maybe a bigger thing than taking a team from behind, like staying healthy.
Antonio, thank you very much for the super chat. Says Purdy's currently second in completed air yards per attempt. He's first in big time throw percentage, fourth in completion percentage over expectation, and fourth in adjusted completion percentage. He's also first in adjusted completion percentage on deep throws. He throws deep often, but accurately and efficiently. Yeah,
that wasn't even a question.
I can't really argue that. So like all these people saying he's a dink and dunker, like he's not.
That's the offense. That's being up 10, being under center, faking the handoff to Christian McCaffrey to the left, booting to the right, stopping and having Brandon Ayuk wide open 15 yards down the field. Like, yeah, does that mean that has a stronger arm than Josh Allen? No, it's the system, it's the scheme, it's Kyle, and it's execution. But if Kyle were watching this right now, he'd be like, oh, dude, those are my stats. Those are legitimately my statistics. What are you talking about?
There are some of those plays, and I loved, by the way, that they did that little bootleg to Kittle a bunch of times against Tampa Bay. Like, yes, please do that. It was great to see Kittle so involved. There are a lot of those plays in the offense, but there are also a lot of plays where Brock is dropping back and throwing the ball over the middle, the Ayuk and Kittle, and it is a tight window throw. Guys aren't open by 40 yards, and Brock is putting it right on the money. I think it's both.
On play action, though, like when they're up 10 and you fake the handoff, like the linebackers come up, there's that void over the middle. There's a lot of throws where Ayuk or Jennings or Debo are just kind of open running across the middle. Sorry. I mean, that's the scheme, though. And that's the benefit of winning and being up and having a good running back in Christian McCaffrey. Like, it all ties together. And he executes. Like, way better than Jimmy. Didn't even want to turn his back to the defense. He was like, I'd rather be in the shot. Like, thanks, Jimmy. He's such a great fit, Brock, for this offense. But it is a fit thing. It is a relationship. I can't give Brock 100% credit. I won't.
Right. And you don't have to. It could be both. That's the thing. Two things can be true. Christian says, if Brock Purdy was a first-round pick, he would have a lot less people downplaying his success. I totally agree with that. He wasn't, but I agree that if he was a first, I mean, hell, there's people going balls to the wall for Sam Darnold after 56 games of crap because he was a first-round pick.
How much skepticism is Purdy really getting, though? Like, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. There's some people online who say, hey, I have questions I'd like Nick Wright and me.
Grant Cohn.
Other than that, everyone's like, man, this guy's like the second coming. So seems to me he's getting a lot of praise very early in his career playing on the best team in the league because he's better than Jimmy, who had a ton of success on this team. I just feel like we could slow down.
Benjamin Redding, the narrative that because we have CMC, Kittle, and Debo is so dumb, people say Jalen Hurts is MVP. He has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Swift, a way better offensive line.
I say the same thing about Jalen Hurts.
But I don't feel like
version of Purdy.
I don't feel like Jalen Hurts is knocked as much as Brock Purdy is. Like Shannon Sharp is not on TV saying, "Oh well, Jalen Hurts only does X, Y, and Z," but Brock is, because Brock was the last pick in the draft and Jalen Hurts wasn't.
Well, I think that's unfair. I think it's wrong. I think Jalen Hurts is a great fit for Philly. And I think Brock Purdy's a great fit for the 49ers. And I think if you put Purdy on the Eagles, they would start Hurts. And if you put Hurts on the Niners, they would start Purdy. It wouldn't make sense to start Jalen Hurts on the 49ers because everything they want to do, Purdy does better. But in that system where you're in the shotgun running RPOs and zone read and doing the tush push, like Hurts is way better. So I think they're both good for their teams. You put them on, if you put either one on a team like Seattle and said, carry him, I don't think either one could do it. That's where I'm at with those two quarterbacks.
But Brock is not a good quarterback sneaker, by the way. He's not. He gets too high. He doesn't get down low enough. He's not good at it. Chris Tallarico says completion percentage is the most misleading stat. For the most part, Shanny only calls high percentage passes. Take out some of the 5-yard passes and then see his completion percentage. His completion percentage on intermediate throws is awesome.
Very high. It's very high. But again, those are wide open because of those are the play action.
Not all of them, though.
Not all of them. But a high percentage of them are the play action throws. And he gets credit for executing all of that. He's a great fit. His passer rating on play action is through the roof, as it needs to be in this system. I never understood how Jimmy Garoppolo came here not wanting to turn his back to the defense. Like, well, then go back to New England, man. What? Never understood how the Niners had to make that deal.
I don't want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo anymore. That's the magic of divorce. He is gone, and I don't ever have to watch him play a game for my team ever again.
No one has to watch him play ever again. He's benched for Aiden O'Connell.
True. I don't know how to say this name.
How good would Aiden O'Connell be on the Niners right now?
Oh, God.
That's all I'm saying.
Stop it. Scribe Mine says Brock is legit. Dak and Tua are not in his league. I don't know about that, but I do think
if Dak and Tua aren't in his league, then who is?
Sean O'Leary says, on that 3-and-out, Kyle called 2 vanilla draws into the teeth of the defense. He gave away that possession. Yeah, like I think the offense and the defense simultaneously took their foot off the gas once they got up 27-7, and that's why the game was not put away.
The whole team except Jair Brown took their foot off the gas. Now, one guy who had something to prove. And I think that's maybe part of the Niners' issue this year is they don't have very many young guys with stuff to prove. When they went to the Super Bowl, all those guys were young. And
except their quarterback.
Yeah, who really wasn't leading them. But the guys who were leading them there were like all trying to get paid. Armstead, Mostert, Boso, Warner, everyone, Debo. Like now, like all those guys have gotten paid a ton. They're all, pacing themselves for the inevitable NFC Championship game that they're going to get to. It's just a totally different vibe. And a guy like Jair Brown helps get him through this part of the season.
I do think that we are entering the part of the year now with this Seattle-Philly, Seattle sandwich that we have, where you're not going to have to wonder, like, are the Niners up for this game? Are they looking past this game? Like, we are in the part of the year now where they're going to bring it. They're going to bring it like they brought it against the Cowboys. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun to see, because I think when this team is locked in and focused like that, they kick the tar out of people.
Yeah, they really do. But the thing about this team is, how often are they locked in and focused? I thought they were locked in and focused for like 17 minutes against the Bucs. Last 2 minutes of the first half, most of like the third quarter. And then they were like, all right, that was enough. The Warriors used to do stuff like that when they were really good. Not really show up for the first half. Essentially win the game in the third quarter, rest in the fourth quarter. And they could pull it off. That was a legit championship team. I'd like to see the Niners not do that. It's football. You only have 17 of these. Come on.
And I think we're going to get a full 60-minute effort for the next 3 weeks. Solo Thought Sports says, I don't blame Kyle for losing against the Super Bowl against Indy, the Chiefs. Kyle hits either one of those throws in the fourth. It's a blowout. I don't totally understand that super chat.
He doesn't blame Kyle for losing against Indy, against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Okay. All right.
Chris Tallarico says they extended Shanny and Lynch in week 3, made Jimmy Garoppolo the highest paid quarterback after 5 games. The second he's eligible for an extension, they will give Brock Purdy the extension. Maybe they've learned. I hope they've learned. Like, don't make big decisions until you have to.
No, he's right. He's absolutely right. They're going to definitely give him the extension. What was the previous comment, real quick? There's something I want to say to that. I forget.
Solo Thought Sports.
Oh no, you do have to you absolutely have to blame Kyle Shanahan for the Niners losing that Super Bowl and the Chiefs' entire dynasty because he didn't want Patrick Mahomes. End of story.
That's fair.
End of story.
He didn't even scout Patrick Mahomes. So.
You had to face Patrick Mahomes. You lost to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl because you didn't want him. And just like that's karma.
Ramilla Sports Report says regular season empire. SB is a regular season wins/stats. Again, man, I'm having trouble deciphering.
He's saying the Niners are a regular season empire, and that.
But they're not. They have a great playoff record under Kyle Shanahan. It's one of the best in the league.
But he's a Rams fan, and he has a ring, and he's gloating.
Okay, well, that's fine. Jesse Wade, but thank you, Rams, by the way, for knocking off Seattle. Jesse Wade says, Grant, stop. If this was Lance, you'd be pounding your chest, yelling, I told you he was this good.
Okay.
All right.
These hypotheticals. Okay, well, you know.
Boxing fan says Kyle would draft Penix if he's available late. I would be fine if the 49ers drafted another quarterback, by the way. I'd be 1,000. In fact, they should. They absolutely should. First of all, because after the year, Sam Darnold's a free agent. So you need another quarterback on the roster. I would be absolutely fine if they drafted another quarterback. Not in the first round.
Not the first round. Yeah.
Jesse Wade says, all offseason you said, can he sustain this? Well,
we'll
Grant?
See. We'll see. He had a great 5 games, and then something happened in the last 3. Got some rest. He's had 2 great games in a row. Let's see where he's at in 2 months. I'd like to know.
What do you think the Niners' record is going to be in these 3 games coming up?
2-1.
That'd be pretty good. I would take that right now, wouldn't you?
I mean, can't we look at the rest of their schedule and kind of look at where? I mean, I think the rest of their schedule isn't as daunting as we thought. They have 4 games against the NFC West. That division is trash. 2 against Seattle, 1 against the Rams, 1 against the Cardinals. That's 4 wins right there. Most likely, maybe 3 if the Niners mess around. Then you got the Commanders. Okay, that's another win. So really, it's just the Eagles and the Ravens. And I'm not saying that's even 2 losses there. Like, those are the hard games, and the Niners conceivably could win both of them. So they could run the table. They could lose those 2 tough games. They could lose those and drop a game they should win. But this is a team that's probably looking at 14-3, 13-4, 12-5, something like that yet again.
Look, I would take 2-1 for sure. If you only win 1 game in these next 3, I would want it to be the Seahawks game because, look, the chances the Niners get the number 1 seed are remote right now, even before they play any of these 3 games. If you win, I think if the Niners win on Thursday, the NFC West is theirs because at most, Seattle would only be able to split against them. And the Niners already have a win against the Cardinals. They already have a win against the Rams. I think if the Niners win tomorrow, the NFC West is their division to lose.
I would agree. I mean, there's no way they should lose the NFC West. Those teams are not good. Seattle lost to the Rams. End of story. End of story. 16 points. The Niners should beat the Seattle Seahawks twice. They should beat the Cardinals again. Whoever their quarterback, Kyler, they should beat them. And the only question is, can they beat Eagles and the Ravens? And even if they lose both of those games, it'll be 12-5, most likely. And they may never face the Ravens again. They may never face the Eagles again. Who knows?
Chris Tallarico is back. Aside from Dallas, they have lost to every potential playoff team. Winning games they should be winning doesn't impress. Beat Philly, Seattle twice, and Baltimore. Hold on a second, Chris. Let's put this back up. They beat the Steelers, who currently would be in the playoffs in the AFC. They beat the Cowboys, as we've said. Granted, they lost to the Vikings and the Bengals. Yes, we know that. They beat Jacksonville. They're going to be a playoff team in the AFC. So give me I don't understand that criticism. I think the Niners have as good a resume as anybody in the NFL.
Can I just say that? Pittsburgh sucks. I know they're 6-4, but their overall net points is -29. They suck. I don't know how they're 6-4.
Okay, but they are.
Yeah, well, so are the Seahawks, and they're like, they don't suck, but they're aggressively mediocre. Can we say that?
But are you telling me, the Niners lost to the Vikings and Bengals, so now they're not that good? But if they had beaten one of those teams, then you'd be like, oh my God, they're so good. Like I feel like the Niners have as good a resume as anybody in the NFL.
I mean, they lost to Cincinnati. They're 5-5, -24 overall net. They had a couple good games. I don't know. I don't know, man. The last 2 weeks, people were crowning them because they beat Jacksonville and Tampa, two teams that ultimately don't matter. I think we're just kind of bored. I think we all know that it's like this whole season comes down to the playoffs. And they could run the table. They could win the rest of the regular season games, and it ultimately doesn't matter because they did that last year.
Right.
I think we're all kind of waiting for the season finale. I think like season 7 of the Kyle Shanahan experience feels a little repetitive. You know, it's kind of like last year.
Yes. You get to a point in your winning cycle or whatever you want to call it, where the regular season is prelude and the only thing that matters is the playoffs. It was just like this. I'm old enough to remember the Niners in the 90s when they were winning 10, 12 games every single year. And you knew they were going to do it. You knew they were going to get to the playoffs. And the only question was, could they beat the Cowboys in the playoffs? And then it was, could they beat the Packers in the playoffs? That's where we are with this 49ers team.
Can they beat the Eagles in the playoffs? So like they could beat the Eagles in a couple weeks, in a week and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Can you beat them in the playoffs though? It's a different thing.
It is
a whole different thing. Yeah.
And they could lose
and
to the Eagles.
Can you beat the Chiefs?
Well, I don't know. The Chiefs averaged less than a touchdown per game in the second half this year. How insane is that?
What is that?
I don't know. Their offense is not, they are a defensive team. Their defense is excellent, but their offense, they sputter out, man. It's wild.
As many weapons as they used to.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is literally, did you see that deep pass to Marquez Valdez-Scantling at the end of that game? It's in his hands.
Yeah, that's the thing. They should have won. They should have won. We keep praising the Eagles. They should have lost.
I'll say this. Would you feel better if in the Super Bowl, Jimmy Garoppolo overthrows Emmanuel Sanders, or Garoppolo puts it right on the money and Emmanuel Sanders drops it?
I don't root for this team. I don't care.
Brother,
you answer that question. You're the one that lives and dies with this team.
I think I would rather the overthrow. It's easier to, like, if it's in his hands and he drops it, I don't know if I could, like, that
you don't know if you could what?
Stomach it.
On, man.
I don't know if I could stomach it, man.
Okay.
Brother MF and Bob says, Iglet and Stats, why not crown all our players now? Are we not supposed to say the 49ers have good players now?
I didn't count anyone.
When the players are doing good, I say they're doing good. And when they're doing bad, I killed Brock on the 3-game losing streak. I killed him because he was not playing well. Now,
you didn't kill him. He's still alive.
Well, you know what I mean. I criticized him a lot when he wasn't playing good, and he has been great the last 2 weeks. We have more data now. So, yeah, I'm talking about what he has done most recently. He may come out against Seattle and stink, especially if it's raining up in Seattle. That could happen too. I would say that's one of the 2 questions that I still have about Brock is, how does he do in the elements? Because so far it hasn't been great in the rain. We haven't seen him in the snow. And also in the cold. I don't know how he's going to look and play in the cold. And that is a real thing. Jared Goff stinks outside in the cold weather. He's awful. He is nowhere near the quarterback he is when he's playing at home indoors. We don't know that about Brock because we haven't seen it yet. But I think that's a legitimate question to ask.
He wasn't great in the rain. That was the one thing about the Cleveland game. He actually did get it together at the end, but he was kind of bad for like the whole game. And I think the rain had something to do with it.
Matthew Sanders says, for what Brock Purdy does, he is the best / top 5. Decision-making, pushing the ball, creating off script, elusive. Brock is a competitor. Dink and dunks is incorrect.
What does that mean for what he does? He's top 5. He plays quarterback in the NFL. He's top 5? Is that what you're saying? I don't understand what that sentence means. I love you, Matthew. Sorry, but I just don't understand the distinction you're making. He's the top 5 Brock Purdy. He's the number 1 Brock Purdy for what he does. I don't understand.
Let me ask you this. Is Brock Purdy's arm better than Peyton Manning's arm was with the Broncos? Because I saw Peyton set the all-time record for yards and touchdowns in a season with the Broncos with an arm that he could barely throw. So clearly, arm strength is not necessarily something that can hold you back when you do the things that Brock does well. Read the defense before the snap, recognize coverage, throw with anticipation, place the ball accurately. So I think the arm strength discussion is maybe a little overblown.
Sure. I think we've seen that. I mean, he's had a lot of success for not a long time, but for a sustained amount of time. And it's not a fluke, but he has had some He's had some moments. Turnovers have been an issue for him. And I think it all ties together. When he's in the fourth quarter and he's down 5 and he's trying to take some chances or push the ball, he doesn't have that fifth gear. And he doesn't need it 98% of the time. But 2% of the time you do. That's why people want that. Sorry.
Matthew Sanders says, guys, Kansas City receivers are garbage with 26 drops. Yeah, they have been bad. Travis Kelce dropped a pass. It's bad there in Kansas City.
Justin Watson, who is that?
Right. The ball literally bounces off his head on 4th and 25. Mahomes puts it right on him. Nope. Clang off the head. It's a damn shame, isn't it? It's a damn shame. If only Patrick Mahomes could win just a little more. I mean, come on. It was weird for me watching that game and seeing Mahomes do the Mahomes stuff and having to like root for it because I wanted the Eagles to lose. It did make me feel a little queasy. I'm not going to lie.
Man, the life of being a sports fan. It's tough.
Yeah. Brother MF and Bob says, why not crown Kyle now? Who needs Super Bowl wins? Like, I understand the frustration that he hasn't won a Super Bowl, that they've gotten to the Super Bowl and they haven't won it, and he gets blamed for that loss, and that they've lost NFC. I get that. I understand all of that. But
I don't think you do.
There are coaches that have won Super Bowls that are not as good a coach as Kyle Shanahan. And just because you haven't won a Super Bowl doesn't mean you're not a great head coach.
But here's the reality of the situation. Kyle coaches for the 49ers. Brock Purdy plays for the 49ers. You're not really being compared to the rest of the league. You're being compared to Bill Walsh and George Seifert and Steve Young and Joe Montana. That's just the way it is. Sorry. It's a tough organization to be a part of. And on those metrics, they don't measure up without rings. Like, until they get there, they'll always be in the Jim Harbaugh, Jeff Garcia pantheon. You can't get higher than that without a ring. Sorry. So you could give them whatever regular season accolades. You could call them top 5, top 10, this or that. Without the rings, they're never going to be in that upper echelon of Niners greats. They won't be.
Sorry. I agree. But you can still be great and not be in the upper echelon of Niners greats. I think the standard in this organization is so high. Joe Montana has 4 Super Bowl rings. Okay. Like, George Seifert has 2 Super Bowl rings, and nobody even talks about. He can't get into the Hall of Fame. Nobody even talks about George Seifert.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, he should. But that's
freaking Mike Shanahan's in his coaching tree, which means Kyle Shanahan's in his coaching tree if you think about it.
The standard with the 49ers is incredibly high. And just because you don't measure up to that, some of the highest of the high standards anywhere in the NFL, doesn't mean you are not also great. It just means you are not in that class.
Well, it's tough. You're never going to get that praise, though, on this team unless you get to that class. And if that's a problem, you can always go play for the Seahawks. I'm just kidding. You can always go play for the Cardinals. How about that?
Joe Crowell says they've blown the 1 seed, so now the season comes down to proving they can win in Philly. With Brock's struggles when behind, they have to stay ahead all game. Good luck to us all. You could make the argument that the 2 seed is not a bad spot for the 49ers to be in the playoffs right now. Maybe, getting the 1 seed is great because you have home field advantage, but the 2 seed, you have home field advantage in every game except 1.
Yeah. Either way, I'm hoping for home field advantage so I can go to home games.
So right now, the Eagles are the 1 seed. The Lions are the 2 seed. Here, you know what? Instead of me just reading it off, we have this technology where I could actually put it on the screen. Imagine that. If I could figure out how to actually, make it work. There we go. So the Eagles are the 1 seed right now. They obviously would get the bye. The Lions would then play the Vikings, right? Mm-hmm. Is that how it would work? And then the Niners would play the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. And then the Saints would play the Cowboys. It's possible that the Niners, if they get the 2 seed, would only have to play one of the Cowboys or the Eagles. That's a good spot to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think anyone's scared of the freaking Cowboys.
I don't think so either.
I mean, come on. The Niners, I think the Cowboys are scared of the Niners, as they should be.
Right. I think at this point, it's pretty clear. Like, if you're not scared of the Niners, you're just living in a fantasy world. They've kicked the tar out of you 3 straight times. So
I do think the Lions would be an interesting matchup for the Niners in the playoffs, because it looked like it could be in Detroit if that game happens. Goff is way better on turf. The Niners have like a phobia of turf, and the Lions have an excellent offensive line.
Yes.
So just little things that sort of help them match up. Now they have a quarterback who can't move, and that's not necessarily a recipe for success against the Niners. We've seen Jared Goff lose a lot of games to the Niners, so I don't know how confident he would be, but it's a pretty good team.
Let's get a couple super chats before we wrap it up. Chris says, ask the Rodgers Green Bay teams how they feel about a great playoff record with only one ring early. Pittsburgh, Seattle are mediocre teams at best. Tampa and Jacksonville, if in the playoffs, are wild card weekend outs. Do the Packers have a great playoff record? I don't think they do. They don't have as good a playoff record as the Niners do because they keep losing to the Niners in the playoffs.
Yeah, but they have a ring.
Yes, they do.
They probably feel like that Rodgers era was like kind of a
complete disappointment.
A disappointment.
Has to
disappointment. Straight up. Yep.
Well, only one Super Bowl ring, only one Super Bowl appearance. You have arguably the second greatest quarterback of his generation, or maybe the greatest if you're counting Brady as a different generation. What does he have? 3 MVPs for Aaron Rodgers? Only one Super Bowl appearance and one Super Bowl ring is an absolute disappointment for the Green Bay Packers. Bob is back.
I feel like Brett Favre was a better competitor than Aaron Rodgers. I grew up on Brett Favre. He threw a ton of picks. I know he was gross with that, but it's like he refused to lose. I heard Aaron Rodgers would be down in the fourth quarter with a good quarterback rating and kind of look around like, well, it's not my fault. I hated that about it. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong. Brother Bob says, Iglet gets it. No one said they sucked. Need to win Super Bowls. Matthew Sanders, Detroit is a terrible matchup for the one I fear most. That would be a game where Brock Purdy is going to have to carry the team because the Lions can move the ball and they can score. So it would be a fun matchup to watch. I'll say that. Chris Tallarico says Shanny isn't a great coach. His method to winning the Super Bowl is just to run it back every year with the same players and scheme that wasn't good enough the year before without getting better where he needs to. Chris has spent a lot of money.
That's true. I love Chris, man. Chris goes hard. Chris is dope. Hey, Kyle, Chris sees through you, all right? Don't forget it.
Let's just say I disagree with that assessment, Chris, but we appreciate the super chat. We appreciate all the comments from everybody. Please keep them coming. Like and subscribe to the Gold Standard Network YouTube channel and to Grant's YouTube channel as well. Just type in Grant Cohn at YouTube. It pops right up. If you haven't already done it, you should. Grant, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, man.
I hope you do as well. Have a great one and enjoy it and be thankful for something. One thing.
Absolutely. We'll be live after the game on the Gold Standard Network YouTube channel, breaking it down in the Instant Reaction podcast. Are you doing an instant reaction after the game?
Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. And you can check both of those out because I think ours is usually over by the time yours gets started. So make sure you do that, everybody. Have a good holiday, and we'll talk to you later this week.
Happy Thanksgiving.